Hi everyone, this is Paul here from the Magdalene Centre. Today I'm doing the astrology report for the Sun's transit of Leo, which begins on the 22nd of July and finishes on the 23rd of August. Now I'll be outlining some of the key themes that this transit highlights to us, along with some of the aspects that affect how we experience it. Before I go into the actual astrology of it though, I just want to clarify, as I always do, that the astrology doesn't control our lives. It merely helps us to understand what are the kind of influences going on around us, what are the energies doing around us, and what themes do they highlight to us, what potential lessons are on offer us to learn at this point. Though obviously we can learn lessons at any point, we're not just confined to when astrology says these lessons are relevant. We can learn them at any point in our lives, as long as we're prepared to take responsibility for our own actions and the way we conduct ourselves. Now, in terms of the Sun's transit through Leo, Leo is the Sun's natural sign, i.e. the Sun is the ruler of Leo, so the Sun's energy is particularly strong at this time. And with Leo, what we're looking at is it's about our authentic self-expression, it's about connecting with creativity, but I guess more importantly it's about being. It's rather than the whole action and doing side of things, which is covered by Aries. Leo is more about being who we are, being our authentic selves. This obviously requires that we know who we are to begin with, so with the Sun having been in Cancer, this was a time of getting in touch with the core of who we are, understanding our emotional underpinnings, but understanding who we are fundamentally beneath the emotional conditioning. With Leo, it's about expressing the side of things. So Leo is a natural progression in consciousness from Cancer, but for us to manifest the highest elements of Leo, we need to be doing the work of Cancer as well. So with the Sun in Leo, what we're looking at is, how do we express ourselves? Who are we? And what is our relationship like with creativity? Because Leo also rules the divine creative force, that creative impulse at the heart of each and every one, so that divine spark of creativity that we all have within us, and it's the responsibility of each and every one of us to nurture that spark into a flame. And it's through turning that spark into a flame that the qualities of Leo, like emotional warmth, come into being. And when we feel secure within ourselves and not reliant on other people for validation or affirmation, then some of the more qualitative and noble qualities of Leo come to the forefront, such as a very giving nature, generosity, showing of mercy to people, and a beneficent attitude where we help other people shine in their own right. But this requires that we're able to shine our own light to begin with. So things we need to be paying attention to is, what is our relationship like with creativity? How much do we require approval and adoration from other people? How much are we reliant on other people to validate who we are, to the point where if we're not getting validation, we start acting out, even to the point where we may start acting obnoxious just to get some form of attention. So it's looking at, where do we feel insecure within ourselves and have a tendency to act out to try and gain attention, and how can we become more secure in who we are? How can we learn to express ourselves without relying on validation from other people? This doesn't mean that we become egotistic. That's obviously a big no-no. What it means is that we feel comfortable within our own skin, we feel able to express ourselves, express our creative impulses in a healthy way, and when we're able to radiate our own creative potential, and we're able to love ourselves regardless of how other people see us, then this tends to facilitate the more generous side of Leo, where we help other people shine as well, we help other people connect with their creative potential, and we just encourage one another to shine and be the best versions of ourselves. So with this transit, we need to be looking at, what fears stop us from expressing ourselves? Where do we hold ourselves back because we believe we're not creative even though we are? The thing is, we're always creating at any given point in our minds, and what we say with our words is creating reality. What we're thinking also affects, it's also a creative process. And obviously how we convert that into things like drawing, music, or anything like that. This is all creativity. It's not. So part of what we're looking at here is how can we connect with our own creative ideas or our own creative tendencies and move beyond the often restrictive dictates that society says, or the external controls that say this is creative, this isn't creative, and instead let go of the need to adhere to some external definition of creativity, and instead understand that we're at any given point we're creating our own reality in our minds. So if we understand who we are and we understand that creative impulse isn't actually our own, it's a divine creative force that flows through us, then we can step into our roles as co-creators. We learn to create the reality that we want based on following the divine will or following a higher instruction. So it's about knowing who we are, knowing what the best course of action is, or what the best way of utilising the energy, the creative impulse is, and then creating the reality that allows us to shine, but also encourages other people to shine their own light in their own way. And this obviously means that it's encouraging people to be their own unique self. So that person may be very different to who we are. It's not trying to make other people like us. It's being someone who radiates that emotional warmth, that encouragement that inspires other people to do the same, and encouraging people to get in touch with their own creative impulse, but not trying to make them be like us. It's about encouraging them to be who they are, not trying to pretend to be something that they're not. Now, in terms of the aspects to the sun during this transit, a lot of them are stressful. Primarily there's either squares or inconjuncts. The first aspect we'll have though will be a trine between Chiron and the Sun. So this kind of highlights the wound to the self and self-identity, and part of the challenge of this is to transform how we express ourselves, or transform how we shine our light, so that we're no longer trying to shine our light for our own sake and our own benefit solely at the expense of others. It's about how do we become an example of shining the light, so that it encourages other people to do it. So it's moving it beyond personal consciousness to more transpersonal focus. But this requires us that we humble ourselves as well, that we don't allow pride to get in the way, we don't allow fear of rejection to affect things. So fear of rejection is a key fear of Leo, because Leo wants validation from other people, and obviously rejection is the opposite of that. So one of the fears we may all be facing at this time is the fear of rejection from others, fear that we're not good enough, or our creative aspects or creative sides won't be acknowledged or accepted by other people. So it's learning to love ourselves enough that we're not dependent on other people's validation in order to be connected with our own creative side. It's learning to be who we are, because the thing is, we can only truly connect with one another if we're being who we are rather than wearing a mask. Because Leo can be guilty of wearing a persona, with it being Trine to the Ascendant, which is all about the earthly mask. Leo can sometimes be more invested in a mask that gains validation rather than being the true self. But when we go below that outer layer of the sun and move towards its core, where we shine, where we learn to be our true self, and where all that warmth generates from, when we shine from our core rather than just wear a surface mask, then people can see us for who we are. And the ones who acknowledge us and accept us, obviously ones who may become close to, the ones who can't accept who we are, that's their problem at the end of the day, not our own. Now, other aspects that will be taking place, we'll have a square to Uranus, so this is about transforming the sense of self through allowing insights from the higher mind to come through and embracing change. So we allow our sense of self-identity to change where necessary, not based on what other people say, but from what our own intuition is telling us, that we need to be making changes so that we become a more authentic version of ourselves rather than constantly operating from behind a mask. We also have the lunar eclipse on the 27th, so this is obviously going to be, and with it being the sun also opposing Mars on the same day exactly, this is going to be a key point of transformation for our sense of self-identity, because it's part of it will be understanding where do we tend to act aloof. This is the moon in the Aquarius side of things. Where do we tend to act aloof, or where do we try generally just stick with the crowd rather than being prepared to stand out in our own right? It doesn't mean that we constantly seek approval, or we seeking other people's validation, but what it does mean is that for the group consciousness to elevate, it requires each individual within it to elevate their own consciousness, because otherwise the group itself won't transform unless each individual takes personal responsibility for being the best versions of ourselves and shining their light. So this particular eclipse, which I'll go into more detail in a separate video, this will highlight where we need to let go of old tendencies of standing back and remaining cool and detached rather than becoming involved in situations and connecting with one another and embracing play. So play is another aspect you'll be dealing with. A big part of or a significant chunk of the Sun's transit of Leo will be dominated by the Mercury retrograde in the sign of Leo, and the Sun will connect with Mercury directly on the 9th when they conjunct one another. But Mercury retrograde in Leo will be further highlighting the need for evaluating the way we create things, or validating our relationship with play and creativity. So the more we utilise the Mercury retrograde as well, the better able it will be to shine our own light and to radiate our own creative potential outwards in a way that encourages other people to do the same, rather than us being creative and then putting other people down so that we feel better than other people. Leo is obviously a sign of royalty, so it's being the queen or king, but not in terms of dominating over other people or keeping everyone else underfoot. It's about the royalty where it's encouraging other people to be the best version of themselves, so it's blessing other people, as it were. This isn't obviously, for this to happen though, it requires that we be connected with our divine self-expression, just connecting with that divine creative spark within us and nurturing it into a flame. If we haven't done that, then it's going to be difficult for us to truly bless other people, because we're most likely going to be operating from insecurity. And other aspects will be square to Jupiter and in conjunct to both Neptune and Pluto, and these in conjunction will form a yod with the Sun at the time of the solar eclipse on the 11th of August. So this will be a time of a major push to transform our sense of self-identity, with the inconjunct from Neptune highlighting where we need to try and embrace or incorporate our true spiritual essence and embrace qualities like compassion, psychic sensitivity, empathy and universal love into our sense of self-identity, which further helps to elevate the Sun and the Leo function, so that we're more likely to operate from the noble qualities rather than the shadow side. And Pluto in Capricorn is about transforming our relationship with power and transforming our relationship with authority, so that we become the authors of our own lives, and we recognise that we're each and every one of us responsible for our own destiny and for the legacy that we leave behind. If we want to leave a positive legacy, then we need to face any power issues that we have and any shadow issues that we're living within. So, as I said, we also have the solar eclipse in Leo. This will be the last eclipse of the current Leo-Aquarius axis before the nodes move on in November. So this particular eclipse will be highlighting the lesson of, or learning to embody, things like play, creativity, emotional warmth, and being that kind of figure that helps to lighten the loads of others. So encouraging other people to lighten up, to become more playful, and to embrace the childlike qualities. I'm not saying we become childish, I say childlike, so we have that innocence, that playfulness, that creativity, and that emotional warmth that children actually have before it gets conditioned out of them for whatever reason. So if we can work on ourselves during the course of this Sun in Leo transit, we become much more emotionally warm individuals. We can become much more playful and creative, and we can embrace spontaneity in our lives. But it requires that we address our relationship with creativity, we address any fears of rejection, and that we learn to shine our own light and nurture the divine spark within us, so it becomes a flame that provides warmth and encouragement for the people around us. The thing is, if we're secure within ourselves, we don't feel the need to dominate other people. We don't feel the need to be domineering, to be commanding, or trying to control other people. When we're at ease within ourselves and we've embraced that divine creative spark and allows that creative energy to radiate from us and encourage other people, then we don't need to keep other people underfoot to feel special. We know that we're unique. We know that we're important in our own way, but we don't see ourselves as more important than anyone else. We encourage each person to be the author of their own lives, to express their own creative energies, and to, in some cases, learn to love themselves. Because Leo is also about the giving and receiving of love. But for a lot of us, we can't give love if we don't know how to receive it in the first place. So part of it will be about learning to receive love, because that love is what nurtures that creative spark that turns it into a flame and then enables us to offer emotional warmth and nurturing to other people. So there's a lot to take on board there, but I hope that's a useful guide for the Sun in Leo transit, and some of the challenges, but also potential rewards that can be gained from this transit. But as I said at the start, we are, each and every one of us, required to take personal charge of our lives, to take responsibility. The astrology doesn't force things upon us, it merely highlights certain lessons that either we learn from them or we don't, and we keep repeating that lesson until we've learned it and can move on. So the more we learn the lessons now, the fewer lessons we have to learn later on, and the more wisdom we have to apply to situations down the line, because we know who we are, we understand in what ways we radiate our own creative impulses, but we recognise that creative impulse is not our own creativity. We're the vessel for higher creativity to flow through, and by connecting with that divine creative force and allowing it to guide us, we then create the right things in life, things that will nurture and empower us, and hopefully will also encourage other people to shine in their own way, to be who they are rather than feeling like they have to hide behind a mask, and no longer need to seek approval from other people. We're happy and comfortable within our own skin, and we encourage other people to do the same. So may the Sun in Leo bring you many blessings and a much deeper understanding and self-love for who you are, and may this be a month where we transform our relationship with creativity, we transform our understanding of who we are, and we learn to imbue our relationships with one another with emotional warmth, generosity, mercy, compassion and love. So take care and be blessed.